and welcome to our weekly discussion, Moral Side of the News. I'm Shawn Kaelin with the WHAS Crusade for Children. Joining us today, as always, a distinguished panel. Father John Stoltz, St. Aloysius Catholic Church. Reverend Daniel Corrie Shull, Burnett Avenue Baptist Church. Rabbi Stan Miles, Louisville Melton School. And Father Joe Graffis, the Archdiocese of Louisville. We begin this week with the controversy surrounding the opening ceremony of the 2024 Summer Olympics. Many Christians around the world outraged by what played out on screen. In the tableau, a scantily clad man painted in blue emerged at the center of a table to sing among dancing drag queens. Conservatives and Christian leaders were quick to condemn the scene as an offensive parody and resemblance to Leonardo da Vinci's famed Last Supper painting, while ceremony organizers say they took inspiration from an ancient pagan festival. Panel, your thoughts? Was the opening ceremony performance a mockery of Christianity, as some are suggesting, or homage to a Greek god, as organizers proclaim?
Well, I think, first of all, I felt like the opening ceremony was amazing in many ways. Coming down the Seine River and several of the things that went on, although the side steps, some of the side shows were a little weird. That's an in word these days. I think this whole scene, it's we just don't know. But you know, they claim that they were trying to look at the gods of Olympus, and we all know the Greek gods did all kinds of weird things, and not always following Judeo-Christian standards by any means. But I think there was a lot of overreaction to the whole thing. French artists they push the walls in lots of ways. And so, I just think that overshadowed a lot of great stuff. Celine Dion, oh my gosh, that was just unbelievable what she did at the end, which I thought made up for a lot of things there. But I think some of our own bishops have made some statements that I thought the bishops of France made a much better statement about the whole thing than American bishops, and we shouldn't be talking about it.
Mm. What did the French bishops say?
Well, they said it was somewhat insulting if it was mimicking Leonardo da Vinci, but they were much more low-key than some of the other Christian people that have spoken about it.
Why didn't the Pope say anything?
He probably doesn't want to get in the middle of all of that.
You should text the Pope and ask the Pope what he would like to share regarding that.
He didn't say anything about that. He did make a very positive statement at the beginning of the Olympics about how the world comes together in a spirit of peace as part of the spirit of the Olympics. This is before all of this, before even the opening ceremonies, I believe. And I think the Vatican sent a delegate to the Olympics, not an athlete, but a delegate as a part of the whole ceremony and part of the whole event of the Olympics. I saw only part of the opening scene. I didn't see of the opening ceremonies. I didn't see that. I agree with, I think what you're saying, Joe, as well, one thing is they put an image there, but they didn't put anything in writing with it saying, which many times they don't, this is the intent. Like they didn't say outright, we intend to mock Christianity or to mock this thing. They didn't say it. So they leave the image open to interpretation. And I would think that even if they did put a written statement, even if they said, we intend to mock this particular scene of the scriptures, I think a response may not be always so much outrage, but to speak actually to the meaning of what that scene is about. And to speak of it that the stories of our scriptures are meant to be life-giving for the faithful who believe in them and also for the whole world. And who could actually mock a life-giving statement?
Sure.
I think that I wish that had been on through the national media what you just said, John, because everything went so fast in the opening ceremony.
Right.
And it was.
Those boats were awfully slow. The boats, they were awfully slow. It was boring.
But they were doing stuff on the boat, Corrie. I
Just
mean,
waving and trying to dodge the rain. They were like in between raindrops and stuff.
But when they did you watch on the sidelines? They were popping up and down.
I did. It was a little boring to me.
I thought it was really kind of.
It was too long.
It was way too long.
You've
Right.
got a lot of commercials to pay for. Corrie. Capitalism.
You're
It's
right.
okay. But to me, that part of the event, it just went like that. And I saw it, I noticed, and I thought, my reaction was, golly gee, that's odd. I didn't realize that the Last Supper was in the Louvre. It just seems like some folks get so hypersensitive of images and books and music and sort of like a tempest in a teacup.
Well, and the Olympics does come out of Greece, and years ago, and so you can understand that. I could understand why they might use an image of that culture of thousands of years ago. Whether that was true or not, who knows? There's always people trying to do spin on various things, but it was an unfortunate incident.
Can't get more pagan than the ancient Greeks.
I think, and that was rather slow to me. And it may have just been the position that I was in. I was in the hospital waiting on a special arrival. And I remember looking up at the television, seeing that really colorful scene. But it never occurred to me to get upset about it. It seemed apparent to me that they were depicting something of the Lord's Supper, and that it was apparent to me that these were drag queens doing it. I took it as a part of what is very popular now, to have drag queens performing some religious events or details or what have you. So I didn't think very much about it. But as I read much of the controversy surrounding it, I thought about how imperative it is to remember that our most sacred religious rituals often originated in the various cultural celebrations of their time and day. And so it is not strange that Jesus and his 12 disciples would gather on that fateful night around a feast. And that feast was not unlike the various feasts that were held and enjoyed in the ancient world by Greeks and by people in France and all over the ancient world. And so it should remind us of how our various faiths are interconnected and interwoven into the very beautiful cultures from which they stem. And I think that's really the lesson that maybe we should extract from that controversial episode at the beginning of the Olympics.
Very good. Thanks for that discussion. And we'll move on to topic number 2, which is Israel. We turn to the Middle East. Last week, a rocket killed 12 Israeli children on a soccer field near Golan Heights. This week, the back and forth strikes in Beirut and Tehran, both attributed to Israel targeting high-ranking figures in Hamas and Hezbollah.
Tonight, the Middle East on a knife's edge after the top political leader of Hamas was killed in Tehran. Ismail Haniyeh seen smiling yesterday as he attended the inauguration of Iran's new president. Hours later, he was dead. Hamas says Haniyeh died in an airstrike, saying he was hit by a rocket directly in the room where he was staying. Israeli officials have had no public comment on the Tehran attack, but Iran's supreme leader vowed to take revenge. The New York Times tonight, quoting Iranian sources, reports Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has issued an order to strike Israel directly. It all comes just hours after Israel publicly acknowledged targeting and killing a top Hezbollah official in an airstrike in a suburb of Beirut, Lebanon. Both Hamas and Hezbollah are backed by Iran, the two dramatic attacks raising real fears of escalation of an all-out war across the region. Tonight, Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu did not mention the Hamas leader's assassination, but said Israel had delivered, quote, crushing blows to Iranian proxies, warned the days ahead would be challenging, and that a, quote, heavy price would be paid by any aggressors. Last April, Iran retaliated against Israel with hundreds of missiles and drones after a deadly Israeli airstrike on the Iranian embassy in Damascus. Most were shot down with the help of the U.S. and others. Today, Secretary of State Antony Blinken saying the U.S. was not aware of or involved in the Tehran attack.
What I do know is the enduring imperative of getting the ceasefire. And what I do know is we'll continue to work at that every day.
But the slain Hamas leader Haniya was a key figure negotiating with Israel on a potential ceasefire and hostage exchange. The fate of those talks now in doubt. One senior Hamas official said today a deal had been, quote, close, but that the talks were now, quote, meaningless. Here in Israel tonight, hostage relatives tormented by what might be next.
We, as hostage families, as you can imagine, are just pawns in this game that's been going on for so tremendously long. It's just unthinkable.
So we approach the 10-month anniversary of the October 7th terrorist attack on Israel, and there's been so much discussion of a deal, yet every day seems to bring us further escalation. Your thoughts?
Well, I think any time vengeance breeds vengeance, breeds vengeance, breeds vengeance, and there's no solving that sometimes. And I certainly think Hamas has been terrible in all this kind of thing, but this whole thing, I don't know where it's going to go. And Stan, you're more of an expert on this than I am.
Oh, no, I'm not. I'm thinking about what has happened in Russia with the hostage exchange in Russia, the guy from the Wall Street Journal and so on. And I just thought, my goodness, couldn't something like that be affected with those folks who are still in those tunnels in Gaza after 10 months? It's over 300 days, folks, and enough is enough. And then the rocket attack happens. A military target? No, a soccer pitch.
Right.
And, you know, you think Israeli kids. Well, guess what, folks? Sadly, those Israeli kids were not all Jewish. Mm-hmm. There were Druze, there were Muslims. I dare say there were probably Christian kids in addition to those Jewish kids. And to have a rocket attack to that specific place, I'm going to share a story, and it happened in December of 2019. I took my grandson over to Israel right after he became a bar mitzvah, and he was and is a devoted soccer player. So he brought in his backpack a soccer ball and a portable pump to pump up the soccer ball. And I said, okay, I don't know whether we'll have time, maybe we will. And we did. It was on a Saturday afternoon in Jerusalem. And just so happened there was a soccer pitch across the street from our hotel. So we walked over to this beautiful soccer pitch. Incidentally, it's in a place called Liberty Bell Park, that the Israelis built to honor the bicentennial of the United States of America in 1976. And my grandson started kicking the ball around, and really soon thereafter, 4 or 5 kids came up on bikes. They were Israeli Arab kids, and we really didn't speak the same language, but they motioned could they join and kick the ball around with Elijah, and Elijah said, of course, yeah, sure, look, come on. And so they started kicking the ball around the pitch. And a few minutes later, another kid came up, and he was obviously an observant Jewish kid, and he said, can I join the soccer game? And everybody said, well, sure, join the soccer game, come on. And ultimately, a family of tourists came, Christian tourists from Germany, and they had kids of the same age. So those kids said, you guys playing soccer? Can we join? And they started. And I have pictures on my phone of 4 Israeli Arab kids, a couple of Jewish kids, and 3 or 4 Christian kids playing soccer together in a pitch in the middle of Jerusalem on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. And I've always looked upon that, being there and seeing that as a personal blessing, that's the way the world needs to be. And when this event with Hezbollah happened and those children were obliterated in their soccer game, it's just kind of hard to take. There has to be an ending. There has to be a solution. There has to be peace. And I know I've said this before on this program, but by golly, I'm going to say it again because it hasn't happened yet. If there can be peace in Northern Ireland, then I am convinced that there can be a peaceful solution to the Israeli-Palestinian issue.
Amen.
Corrie?
It's a great.
Go ahead.
And I don't even know that you should say anything after that. I think my vote is that President Biden should commission Rabbi Miles to go and head up the talks for a ceasefire there in Israel among the Israeli and Palestinian people. I think what concerns me about the recent assassination of the Hamas official is that this could very easily instigate a war that is inclusive of several countries in that part of the world, and even may include the United States of America, as we are allies of Israel. I'm very concerned about this. I have been concerned about much of the rhetoric that has surrounded this conflict since it began. I've been concerned about the lack of humanitarian care that has been extended to the Palestinians. I've been concerned about this bifurcation of Israeli versus Palestinian, as though they are not both Jewish people, as if there are not Jewish people on the Palestinian side. And I'm concerned that this assassination will make sort of the gains that have been achieved over the last several months, just render those non-existent and really intensify this conflict. I hope that the U.S. will lead in a compelling way, but this seems to have taken things to another level, and I'm a bit concerned at what the coming days may bring.
I agree with you, Corrie, especially on the last point, because it sounded like there was at least some movement toward a ceasefire, and it looked like we were getting awfully close to that, and this has just blown this thing completely up at this point in time and set it back probably months.
And Netanyahu, that's a name. That's a Netanyahu. When he was here in the U.S. and spoke before Congress, it was a political pep rally for him.
Right.
His hubris and brazenness in the face of everything that was going on is deeply concerning, and I can't imagine at how he might also instigate sort of the intensifying of this matter.
I find as I watch this story over these past several months that I just notice how complicated it is, and how, for example, was noted, we have heard about ceasefire talks sort of continuing and the intent on both sides for that and approaching a ceasefire. And then on top of that, we hear about these actions of violence that take place. And both are occurring at the same time, which leads me to believe, okay, underneath or behind the scenes, there are talks and there's dialogue that goes on of a lot of nuance, and it's complicated, and they're working on that. Or on the other hand, I think maybe there's just bloodthirst, and it's just progressing in this violent way. I fear, like you all have said, about an escalation in the area of violence and of it going to a war to a larger dimension. I pray that doesn't happen, and I hope that the United States uses its own diplomatic power in the region to help that not happen, and that also that there are moves that are made, in as much as there have been moves made to escalate violence and to escalate war, that there would be strong moves worldwide known that escalate diplomacy and peace. That somehow statements are made or moves made in ways that we see peace going on there and dialogue happening between Hamas and Israel,
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Stan, you started the conversation, and we tape this on Thursdays, and this is new. We try to be topical with these conversations. The prisoner exchange between Russia and the United States and multiple other countries too today that took place speaks to what you're talking about, Father John, and let's make that happen in other places too. But if we want to spend some time talking about that a little bit.
It's a possibility. What happened with the folks who were imprisoned in Russia show that hostages, things can be negotiated, hostages can be released, people can go home. And I just pray that it happens for those Israelis of so many different, we've got babies, toddlers over there who are hostages. I pray that it can happen for them soon.
I mean, I think that was very exciting news to hear about this, because obviously that negotiation has been going on for years, especially with Paul Whelan and that family. And the fear always on all sides is how much are you giving up to do those hostages? What are you giving up for that? The tit for tat. And God help the diplomats who are working on all of that, because everybody has to give a little bit, but that it can be worked out is a great joy in the midst of all of the sadness right now. Hopefully the same thing can happen in Israel, but I'm afraid it's off the back burner now.
Anyone else with any comments on the Russian prisoner exchange? It's happening. We don't have a whole lot of information on it, but I think it was 16 with multiple different countries, and including Russian prisoners held in their own country, released.
I think of my immediate thought is how relieved the families are and how great it will be for them to see their loved ones come home. And that's a blessing.
Absolutely. Okay, well, Father Joe, do you have anything?
I think, for all the Jewish families that are still having these hostages, and of course they're being in tunnels and all this kind of, we don't know how they've been treated and all that kind of stuff. I just can't imagine the pain that they're going through right now. Let's just pray to God that the Spirit may guide some people to effectuate that release.
Okay, we have about 4 minutes left, so let's move on to, we started with the Olympics, let's end with the Olympics. The U.S. women's team with gold. What did I do with my controller so y'all can hear the story? Sorry about that. Rebecca, you can play it, and I'll...
Simone Biles and Team USA golden again, coming out on top in the all-around final. Biles withdrew from this competition in Tokyo after suffering from what gymnasts call the twisties. They took silver in those games. Their last gold was 8 years ago in Rio. But today, Biles twisted and turned effortlessly, pushing through a calf injury, competing in all 4 events. And at the very end, all eyes were on the 27-year-old for the floor exercise. The now 8-time medalist cementing her place in the record books as America's most decorated gymnast.
I don't keep count. I don't keep stats. I just go out here and do what I'm supposed to, and I'm doing what I love and enjoying it.
Biles crediting her teammates, Jade Carey on the vault, Jordan Charles on the uneven bars, and Suni Lee shining on the beam. Her Olympic career was threatened by 2 rare forms of kidney disease. She's now in remission.
I could feel myself getting a little rattled, but once I calmed down, I did probably one of the best beam routines that I could have done.
The goal tasting good for Team USA.
So many great Olympic stories. Biles is obviously a great story with her comeback, and then you have Suni Lee's resilience fighting off kidney disease. Just a great story, I think, with the women's team there.
There's so many great stories of all the various countries. I don't really like all the publicity about, our country and the flag raising. There's something good to that, but I think just all these athletes, and I think of all of them that work so hard, and so many minor sports that don't get the publicity, and yet the amazing things that they do is whether it's swimmers, whether it's archery. I was watching some of the archery.
You watched the archery too?
Yeah.
Me and my son.
And it was like, oh my
cool.
gosh,
Yep.
how do they do that? Some of the people, and ping pong.
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing all the various sports and what these athletes go through. I think it is kind of tells us everybody is capable of almost anything.
I watched the women's gymnastics and watched them win the gold, and that was just wonderful to see. I don't know if this is a great comparison, but if those of you who are fans of University of Louisville Cardinals remember Darrell Griffith, who played between 1976 and 1980, was said that he could leap 48 inches, that's from foot to floor. Simone Biles could leap 88 inches, wow. So 12 feet. Subtracting her height is what's there, and it is just, and when you saw it, that was during the floor. They call it the floor something
exercise.
Floor exercise. It was incredible athleticism from all of those gymnasts to see that.
That's free flight.
It's 88
about 20
inches.
seconds left. Corey or Stan?
Now I'd like to challenge you to a game of ping pong. And let's see if which one of us can make it to the Olympics.
I surrender. This is the ideal, folks. This is the way it should be. The Olympics, everyone getting together with the competition.
You're good. That's it for this week.